Tragedy struck the city and it was in ruins. There was destruction everywhere. Looking at the monster that was in front of him, the guy couldn't believe it. After all, he was just a human chosen by the system, so how could he stand up to such a monster? In front of the poor guy was a giant monster with horns. The guy was just an ant compared to this monster. He still couldn't understand why this fate had fallen on his head. The monster swung its huge arm and delivered the final blow to its victim. The guy only cried out helplessly, for he could do absolutely nothing at that moment. In the ruined city, the radio reported that it had been 5 days since the huge high-level monsters had invaded the C4 area. On the second day after the incident, all communications with the outside world were cut off. The radio also reported that the Dawn Guild had recently sent 75 cultivators from other regions to the C4 zone, and all of them had already arrived in the city. The guild members gradually and systematically tried to sweep the city of monsters. They were barely managing to fight off all these monsters. The girl with the short haircut noted that this year's newcomers were much smarter than before. However, she complained that the guy in front of her couldn't even handle one rank 1 monster. The guy was having great difficulty defending himself even against such a simple monster. Suddenly he slipped and started to fall, and the monster was just waiting for this mistake of the guy. The guy let the monster get close and stuck the blade right into the monster's mouth. With such a strange and dangerous method, he finally managed to defeat the monster. The girl noted that the guy had acted bravely, but her opinion of the guy hadn't changed. The girl still thought that he was too weak. After this fight, the girl decided to gather all the newcomers. She decided to find out how the rookies' first fight went, and what they experienced in their first fight. The man with the axe was Wang Qiang, an awakened D rank, class warrior. He scoffed at what was so easy and wondered if this was the very monster invasion that was scaring everyone. Next to him was a man with a bow, Li Jiwei, D rank awakened, class ranger. For him too, the fight went too easy. He thought it would be more difficult. The girl reminds them not to relax too much, as the main wave of monsters have already retreated and they only got leftovers. She instructs them that if they face a real monster invasion, they won't last a minute. After that, the girl wonders how the weakest of the newcomers is feeling. The guy hiding his left hand behind his back says that he's fine. However, the girl with the staff comes up behind him and grabs his injured arm. She doesn't understand why the guy says he's fine when he's so wounded. She decides that the arm needs to be bandaged, or else an infection will get in. That was Mu Xiaoxue, an awakened D rank, class elementalist. Wang Qiang classically starts mocking the guy. In his opinion, the guy is such an idiot for thinking he can become a full member of the Dawn Guild. The girl doesn't really listen to him. She believes that most of the territory their squad is responsible for exploring has been traversed, so there shouldn't be anything dangerous further in her opinion. She asks Mu Xiaosui to stay with the wounded Chu Mingshuan in this place and wait for further orders, and she tells the others to go with her. After the others went to defend the area, Mu Xiaosui started to bandage the guy's arm. Chu Mingxuan apologizes to the girl because it was because of him that the girl was left in this place. And then the girl strongly rewound the guy's hand, making him feel unbearably painful. The girl notes that if the guy is screaming so much, then there is definitely nothing wrong with him. The girl wonders why a guy like him would want to join the Dawn Guild. Chu Mingshuan sighs. It seems that the girl also thinks that such a job is not suitable for him. The girl tries to deny it. However, the guy himself realizes that he doesn't belong in this guild. Despite all this, the guy has no choice. Recently, the doctor informed him that his sister is severely brain damaged, and it is a miracle that she is still alive. Chu Mingshuan wondered to the doctor if there was anything that could be done about it to get his sister out of the coma. The doctor couldn't have any comforting words for the guy because, considering the level of medical equipment, it was almost impossible. He asked the guy to be prepared that if the sister woke up, she would be in a vegetative state. However, already leaving, the doctor noted that there was only one ghostly possibility for him. In order to cure his sister, he would need to enlist the support of a high-level healer from the Dawn Guild. If they were willing to help the guy, only then would he be able to save his sister. It didn't guarantee a cure, but it gave a ghostly hope. Looking from the corridor into the hospital room and looking at his sister, who was in a coma, the guy thought about this ghostly chance to save his sister. He wasn't going to give up and just give up, because there was a chance. He vows that at all costs, he will join the Dawn Guild and find the best healer. He is not going to give up on his sister and promises that he will definitely cure his sister. Meanwhile, the girl with short hair has been leading her group through the wasteland. She can't find any trace of survivors or monsters. She noticed that the terrain seems to have turned into a wasteland. However, from the very beginning, she was left with the thought that something was wrong, but she couldn't figure out what exactly it was. Wang noted that it seemed like all those small monsters they had met were the last ones and there were no more left. The girl, on the other hand, couldn't help but focus even more. She noticed that even if no one survived, there should have been at least some bodies left. The girl thought that the others had been eaten, but she immediately discarded this possibility, as she thought that this could not be the case because there were only small monsters here. And then a frightening thought occurred to her, as it turns out that there were medium and high-level monsters in this place. She immediately rushed back to the guy and girl left behind. While running, the girl informs the men that they need to return to Xiao Xue and Ming Xuan immediately. If her hunch turns out to be correct, the guy and girl left behind are in danger. Meanwhile, Xiao Xu crouched down on the ground and revealed that she didn't really want to join this guild. She didn't even have any goal for it. The ground behind her cracked, and she informs that if a very strong high-level monster appeared in front of her right now, she would immediately be paralyzed with fear. As the saying goes, be wary of your desires. For at the same moment, a giant worm appeared above the girl. I think she went to the wrong dune. The girl was not lying, for upon seeing the monster, it was as if she was paralyzed. However, she was lucky as she was not alone. Ming Xuan jumped towards the girl and pushed her away from the danger. The monster didn't hesitate to taste the guy. All that was left of Ming Xuan was only an arm, which was what the girl was looking at. The monster was already looking at the girl with appetite. She was trying to pull herself together. After all, it wasn't just her life, and Ming Xuan needed the girl's help. At this moment, Ming Xuan was inside the worm. He barely remembered being swallowed by the monster and was now inside it. Ming Xuan was not alone in this place. He looked down and inevitably realized that he would soon be just like those poor souls below. On the verge of death, he thought of his sister who would be alone and would never have a chance again. He remembered the very moment the doctor had told him that diagnosis. Could he leave his sister alone and rob her of even the very last chance of survival? Ming Xuan reached down to the already dead poor souls and pulled out his sword. At the same moment, a system window appeared. The system congratulated the guy for fulfilling the system transfer conditions. And after that, the system activated unlimited resilience. Then the system transfer process began. A moment later, the system reported that the system transfer was successfully completed, and also that the carrier state had been restored. A green aura enveloped the guy, and he was surprised to feel his body regenerating. Pulling his sword out of the dead guy, didn't know what had happened, but it was very timely. Xiao Xue was still trying to do something despite her fear, for Ming Xuan needed her help. However, her cursed legs wouldn't obey her, and she froze in place, instinctively closing her eyes and covering her face with her hands. Suddenly, the giant worm changed its trajectory and swept past the girl without even touching her. She fell to the ground and didn't realize what had even happened. Suddenly, she saw and heard it. It was Ming Xuan who refused to give up and chopped the giant worm from within. The girl was glad that the guy was able to survive after all. Ming Xuan made a small cut on the giant worm and asked for the girl's help. The girl finally came out of her daze and attacked the giant worm with fire arrows. However, to the girl's disappointment, her fiery attacks didn't seem to do any damage to the giant worm. While trying to get out of the giant worm, Ming Xuan asked that the girl not stop and deal damage on the monster, because the giant worm takes damage. And Ming Xuan only knew such information because he had a new system. From it, he knew that the level 5 giant worm monster had severe exhaustion, bleeding and damage to its internal organs. And based on the parameters of the system, the monster didn't have long to live. The girl with short hair and 2 companions arrived on the spot and watched the battle from the side. The girl couldn't even imagine that simple beginners would not only survive, but also deal enormous damage to such a monster. She mentions that one such level 5 monster is not worth a small amount of money. If you go into the jaws of such a monster, it will be impossible to get back out. Wang Qiang asks Meng what they should do in such a situation. The girl surprisingly replies quite coolly that they don't need to do anything and will just observe. The system meanwhile reports that the giant worm's health has dropped below 10%. which means the monster is going into a state of insanity. The giant worm started to wriggle and smash everything around. Xiaoxue falls under this hail of debris. The guy wonders if the girl is okay, but this time everything was fine and the wounds were not fatal. Mingxuan kept longing for the monster to die as soon as possible, because Mingxuan himself was also not in the best condition. In the end, the guy takes a risk and asks the girl to use her most powerful spell and shoot straight at him. Xiaoxue doesn't realize what the guy is up to. However, Mingxuan asks the girl to trust, because they have absolutely no time to argue. Since Mingxuan asked, Xiaoxue decided to trust him and started to recite her most powerful spell. Xiaoxue used a flame arrow that rushed straight to the unprotected spot that the guy had opened. At the same moment, Mingxuan miraculously jumped out of the giant worm, miraculously escaping. And the fire whirlwind hit the target exactly. Xiaoxue's marksmanship was simply astonishing. From the attack on the unprotected spot, the worm began to wriggle in agony. And soon, Mingxuan noticed that the giant worm's health had dropped to 0. The guy was lying powerless on the ground. He had no arm, and his eyes started to close. At the same moment, notifications from the system started appearing one after another. First, the system reported that Mingxuan had received 16,500 experience units for destroying a level 5 giant worm. Immediately after that, the system reported that Mingxuan had reached level 2 and that his main characteristics had been improved. The system didn't stop there and congratulated the guy for reaching level 3 and so on, until finally the system congratulated the guy for reaching level 7. Later, at the headquarters of the Dawn Guild, Han Shuji, the captain of the Vermilion Bird Squad, welcomed the newcomers to the guild. He was a B-rank awakened one, class spirit speaker. He congratulated the 2 rookies for successfully passing the trials and officially joining the Vermilion Bird Squad. Wang Chang and Li Jiwei were happy that they had such an opportunity and thanked the captain. The captain also noticed that Meng Lan had also done a good job on this mission. The captain was even surprised that the girl, along with a group of rookies, was able to defeat a level 5 monster, so the captain later rewarded the girl. Meng Lan thanked him for this. However, there was some sad news. The captain mentioned that the other 2 rookies had not passed the certification, so all the honors for defeating the giant worm went to those who didn't even participate in the battle. After a while, Mingxuan woke up in the hospital. He was somewhat relieved that he had managed to survive that deadly battle after all. However, he couldn't help but notice that he was now missing his right arm. He was already good for nothing, and now without an arm, he's going to have a very hard time in life. Wang Chang and Li Jiwei came to Mingxuan's hospital room, and naturally not with good intentions. Mingxuan immediately asks them what happened to Xiaoxue. Wang Chang, on the other hand, scoffs that the girl was completely useless and ran away, so she's fine. Touching her new badge awarded by the guild, Wang Chang pointed out that the girl's skills were still not enough to become part of the Dawn Guild. Jiwei asks that the guy should be grateful that leader Meng saved the guy's life and destroyed the giant worm, and that now all the guy has to do is look for what little money to live on. Mingxuan was already hysterical and noted that he remembered very well how he and Xiaoxue had dealt with the giant worm together. Wang Chang and Li Jiwei had come to pressure the guy not to tell anyone too much. After all, they were the ones who killed the giant worm along with leader Meng. As they leave, they point out that the guy just didn't do anything and is talking nonsense. They even ask that he not think his life is over if he wasn't accepted into the guild. And they even ask that the guy go back to Scum and work at the dump. Mingxuan couldn't believe this nonsense he had just heard. After all, he definitely didn't dream it. At the same moment, a system window appeared in his eyes. The system was asking the guy to complete a rookie mission. The mission is the right hand of the god craftsman. The mission stated that it was said that a craftsman god had lived in a certain city of mechanisms for some time. He left behind a great number of his mechanical soldiers. Perhaps they are still on guard over their master's best creation. The system offered the guy such a task. Looking at the place where his right arm had once still been, the lad couldn't help but think about such a task. He even speculated that the thing called the system must have unimaginable power. In that case, there was nothing else for him to do anyway, so he decides to accept this mission. The guy's body immediately glowed with a blue light, as if the system was going to teleport him somewhere. In a moment, there was no one else in the hospital room, and Mingxuan seemed to have vanished. After a while, the guy fell painfully onto the hard floor. The first thing he wanted to do was to realize what kind of place he was in. When he opened his eyes and looked around, he saw an incredibly long corridor with torches hanging on the walls. The system informed him that the first chapter, the right hand of the God Craftsman mission, had begun. The system reported that the right hand of the craftsman god was hidden inside the city of mechanisms. The system asked the guy to try to reach the depths of the city alive. It was not some joke of the system, because the guy trying to get up carelessly stepped on a dangerous slab on the floor. At the same instant, a pin appeared right under his feet as the guy activated the mechanism. Greatly frightened, the guy crawled backwards on all fours, even though he only had 3 limbs, and after every step he took, the pin emerged from the floor. Suddenly, he touched the slab on the floor with his left hand already. After activating the mechanism, the slab moved out from the right wall and arrows flew towards the guy. Ming Xuan pushed off with his feet and flew to the ceiling of the corridor. He didn't understand why he was in such a cursed and dangerous place. When he jumped up, he greatly wondered how he was able to do it. His body seemed to have become much more agile and dense. However, after landing on the floor, the guy stepped on the trap plate with his left foot and activated the mechanism again. This time, it wasn't just sharp pins, as a giant ball rolled from one end of the hallway. Stopping worrying about the other traps, Ming Xuan rushed towards the end of the corridor so that he could run out of the corridor as fast as possible without being flattened by the giant ball. Ming Xuan complained that today was a bad day for him. He ran out of the trap corridor with difficulty and was thrown forward by the explosive force of the ball. Lying on the floor and trying to catch his breath, he looked up at the giant ball and was glad that he had been rescued. The system didn't give him time to rest, as it immediately informed him that the task had been updated and that the second chapter of the right hand of the craftsman god task had begun. Ming Xuan ran out to some suspicious-looking auditorium. The coffins standing in this strange arena suddenly began to open one by one. Inside were mechanical soldiers. The system told the guy to defeat the mechanical soldiers resting in this place. The system notes that these are old mechanical soldiers and that it is a normal craftsman's work. Due to heavy wear and tear, the strength of these mechanical soldiers only remained at the level of an inferior monster. Ming Xuan, of course, realizes that the inferior monster is not that scary. However, what scares him is not just one inferior monster, but the fact that these inferior monsters were too many. Looking behind his back, he realizes he had no way out. The path to salvation was cut off. He even thinks that perhaps this place will become his grave. While Ming Xuan was immersed in his thoughts, a mechanical soldier was already beside him. The soldier launched a chopping blow with the intention of killing the guy, but it only hit the floor as there was no one there. Ming Xuan dodged the blow at the last moment and flew upwards. He refused to give up, for he couldn't abandon his sister, and it was necessary to cure his sister. Ming Xuan was so emotional that he was going to destroy everyone and even ask the stupid mechanical soldiers to attack one by one. Rushing down, he easily sealed the mechanical soldier into the ground with his feet. He was greatly surprised that he was able to defeat such a monster in just one strike. He didn't realize when he became so strong. Will his head soon be bald and he'll be killing monsters with one punch? The system immediately awarded him 20 experience points for killing the mechanical soldier. The system showed that Ming Xuan's level was 7, class martial artist. The experience to the next level was only 2%. He was a little surprised that there was such a level increase. The mechanical soldier didn't need the sword anymore, so Ming Xuan took his sword for himself. Although he didn't understand why he suddenly had the system, he noticed that the more he fought, the stronger he became. He was encouraged by such interesting news, for it was a simple truth. And having realized such a truth, he rushed to the waiting mechanical soldiers, which he was going to destroy one by one. For each of these mechanical soldiers, the guy received 20 experience points from the system. He demolished one more mechanical soldier. The mission would look easier if Ming Xuan had 2 hands instead of 1. Finally, he noticed that the defeated mechanical soldiers were lying around him, and no one else was moving. Ming Xuan heaved a sigh of relief. After all, he had managed to survive this massacre. According to the experience scale, he already had 95% experience and only had 5% experience left until the next level. This information made the guy sad, because if there were a couple more mechanical soldiers, he would be able to level up. Suddenly, the ground beneath the guy's feet shook, and the system announced that the mission information had been updated. The coffin standing in the center of the arena trembled. The system announced that the final chapter of the right hand of the craftsman god mission had begun. The guy had reached the depths of the city of mechanisms. Now he needed to defeat the mechanical knight who guarded the right hand of the craftsman god. The arena shook again, and a frightening and monstrous aura began to emanate from the coffin in the center of the room. A rider on a horse like a knight appeared from the coffin. The system reported that it was an old mechanical knight, a puppet carefully crafted by a master craftsman. However, time had taken its toll, and now the mechanical knight's strength was barely at the level of an average magical beast. Looking at the power and aura emanating from the mechanical knight, Ming Xuan already regretted that he had only recently wished for another monster to appear. He even wanted to take back his words. However, the mechanical knight didn't give the guy any time to think about it, as it instantly rushed towards him and attacked. Ming Xuan miraculously dodged and flew into the air once again. He noticed that the mechanical knight was incredibly fast. He also realized that this battle would no longer be as easy as it was with the mechanical soldiers. Meanwhile, the mechanical knight gazed towards the guy. Will Ming Xuan be able to solve his sister's problem? What do you think of the beginning of this story? What similar manhwa or manhwa would you recommend to others? The mechanical knight easily crowded the young and inexperienced Ming Xuan. It moved so fast that Ming Xuan didn't even have a chance to counterattack. The only thing the guy thought about was how to slow down the mechanical knight. As he began to think about slowing down the mechanical knight, a crazy thought came to his mind. He decided to take the risk since he had no choice, and the mechanical knight would soon wear him down. When the mechanical knight and Ming Xuan approached each other, Ming Xuan dodged the mechanical knight's spear attack. The guy tried to attack the horse that the mechanical knight was on. However, to the guy's surprise, the horse skin of the horse was incredibly strong, and he was unable to pierce through it. While he was thinking about it, the mechanical knight was about to attack again. He thrust his spear forward, storing up powerful energy. And then the mechanical one shot a magic charge straight at Ming Xuan. Ming Xuan managed to dodge the attack, but the mechanical knight was already at his back and tried to strike him with his spear. Just when Ming Xuan thought that he couldn't dodge the knight's attack, at the same moment, the leg of the horse that the guy had hit earlier broke. At the same moment, the mechanical knight fell to the ground along with the horse at a tremendous speed. Ming Xuan thought that he had succeeded and that he finally now had a chance as the mechanical knight dismounted from the horse. However, it was a big mistake as the guy was hit by a powerful discharge of magic at that moment. As it turned out, as soon as the mechanical knight fell off the horse, he took a lightning-fast stance and attacked the guy with a magic discharge. The mechanical knight walked towards the helpless guy with a slow and calm step. Ming Xuan looked at the system window and saw that paralysis had been imposed on him. The mechanical knight decided to finish the guy off with a single spear strike, and the guy thought that his end had come. However, at the very last moment, the guy managed to dodge the mechanical knight's attack and cut off the mechanical knight's arm. All of this only happened because the mechanical knight's horse was destroyed and Ming Xuan raised his level to 8th level. Thanks to the level increase, the paralysis had subsided. After leveling up, the system reported that a new skill, Weak Point Strike, had been obtained. Weak Point Strike, attacking an enemy's weak point with a 50% chance of dealing 200% damage. Thanks to this skill, Ming Xuan had seen all of the mechanical knight's weaknesses. Now the mechanical knight was no longer an invincible opponent. Being in a winning position, Ming Xuan decided to spring into action and go on the attack against the mechanical knight. He used his Weak Point Strike skill and dealt 200% damage to the mechanical knight. Ming Xuan didn't stop there and continued to strike time after time using his new Weak Point Strike skill. He felt that he had a chance to win. The mechanical knight realized that he might lose when his health dropped to 720. Ming Xuan didn't hesitate as he felt that the preponderance of the confrontation was now on his side. With a deft and lightning-fast strike, he stripped the mechanical knight of its head. After this blow, the mechanical knight fell to the stone floor and crumbled. The system immediately reported that the mechanical knight had been destroyed, so the guy received 2,500 experience. Covered in sweat from such a heated battle, the guy couldn't help but rejoice that he still managed to defeat the mechanical knight. The system reported that the tutorial quest, Right Hand of the God Craftsman, had been completed. The system began to calculate the results of the quest. Suddenly, the mechanical knight's body was lifted by a strange energy. The parts of the mechanical knight's body began to join together until they turned into a hand. The system notified the guy that it was the right hand of the god craftsman. The hand was the pride of the god craftsman. According to rumors, whoever was equipped with this item would be able to bring the greatness of the craftsman back to this world. The hand had a built-in skill, crafting, usage limit 3 times a day. Ming Xuan was delighted when he saw the item. After all, it was the right hand of the god craftsman that he had come to this dungeon for. Suddenly, the hand flew up and rushed towards the guy, trying to take the place of his lost right hand. The system reported that the implantation of the god craftsman's right hand to its owner had begun. A searing pain pierced through Ming Xuan's body as the new right arm tried to fuse with his body. Unable to bear the pain, he lost consciousness. At this moment, the system reported that the binding of the master's right hand to the owner had been completed. The training quest was completed, and the system began his return to the real world. Meanwhile, someone mysterious was observing Ming Xuan's progress. The mysterious person remarked that he was curious how far the 417th would be able to go. His words hinted that there were at least 416 others like him before Ming Xuan. Soon, Ming Xuan sat down abruptly on the bed in his hospital room. He grabbed his head and was surprised that he was in the hospital again. He had already thought that everything that had happened yesterday had turned out to be a dream. But at the same moment, he looked at his hand. Ming Xuan was startled as there was a new arm in place of his right arm. After that, he started waving the right hand of the god craftsman and felt that he could move his hand as if it had been with him since birth. He was glad that now he wasn't completely useless. Suddenly, the phone rang and Ming Xuan was informed that something had happened to his sister. At the hospital, the nurse tried to talk Wang's doctor down, convincing him that the patient had been under their care for years. She asked to make an exception for her. Dr. Wang reminds Nurse Liu that the patient's family hasn't paid her medical bills in over a month. The doctor remarks that they are a for-profit organization, not a charity. Wang orders security to take Nurse Liu away. Nurse Liu resents that the guards have no right to treat her like this. At this point, Ming Xuan appeared and asked everyone to stop. Dr. Wang became indignant and wondered who had come to see them. However, the guy ignored him and walked past him. Wang wants to understand what's going on, as this was a private area and outsiders were not allowed to enter the place. As soon as Dr. Wang touched the guy's shoulder, the guy turned towards him with a frightening aura. From such a sudden effect of the terrifying aura, the doctor fell to the floor. Ming Xuan thanked the nurse for being able to notify him of the incident in time. The doctor wondered if the guy was a relative of the patient. The doctor was about to explain to the guy about the hospital's rules and what they do when someone is late in paying. However, at that moment, Ming Xuan held out a card to the doctor. Ming Xuan apologized for the delay. After all, he was participating in the Dawn Guild selection, and that was why he was late with the payment. After looking at the card and hearing about the Dawn Guild, and that fellow awakened doctor was surprised. His opinion immediately changed, and as he left, he asked the guy to be more careful next time. Ming Xuan thanks the nurse for helping him in such a difficult time. The nurse points out that the guy is already having a hard time, and now he has attracted Dr. Wang's attention. Ming Xuan realizes that the situation is quite difficult, but he promises that he will pay all the expenses on time in the future. In the evening of the same day, he received a message that his account had been debited for his sister's treatment. He used to be an apprentice of the Dawn Guild and at least had a small stipend. It was enough to pay for his sister's hospital care. Now, however, he needed to find a job as soon as possible. Looking at his stats in the system window, the guy noticed that he was stronger now than before. He had even managed to defeat a terrible monster. Therefore, he decided to try his luck in that creepy place he didn't even dare to come to before. This neighborhood was a rather strange place that few people dared to enter. That place was Black Street. Unlike official organizations like the Dawn Guild, this place gave out private quests. Black Street was also a place where awakened people gathered without registering. In this place, if you were strong enough, you could make a good amount of money. Otherwise, the street would chew you up and spit you out, just like the man Ming Xuan just passed by. One of the men wondered to the others if they had heard that Yang's Black Hand Gang was gathering people to hunt. Another man thought they were crazy because there had been a wave of monsters in the C4 area recently. He didn't understand why anyone would hunt in such a dangerous place now. The first man pointed out that there were always those who would do anything for money, so he suggested the others to go and see what those people were up to. A tall, muscular man appeared at the meeting place. He called everyone gathered cowards and said that he only needed one man to put together a team. The other men thought the muscular man was looking for fools. After all, by going on such a dangerous mission, they risked running into a wave of monsters and getting killed. One of the men even remarks that if the muscular man wants to die, then let him go on such a dangerous mission himself. The muscular man turned to the man with the name Yang and informed him that no one else wanted to join them. Yang was extremely dissatisfied with such a verdict. Since they didn't have a frontliner, they would have to be incredibly careful, and only then would they be able to manage. They were about to set off in such a formation for the mission when suddenly someone from the crowd asked the men to wait. Everyone turned around to look at the daredevil and heard him decide to join the team. That daredevil turned out to be Ming Xuan. Looking at the guy, the men around them all froze, not knowing how to react to the guy's statement. After a second, the men started laughing at the guy. After all, such a young guy who hadn't even grown hair on his face was about to go hunting. Ming Xuan asked what the reward was for the task the men were going on. However, the muscular man did not like the guy, as the man thought the guy was bullying him. The muscular man tried to attack Ming Xuan, but slightly surprised, Ming Xuan deftly dodged the muscular man's fist. The muscular man only had time to be surprised before Ming Xuan's blade was already at his throat. Ming Xuan did not understand why the muscular man was attacking him. However, at this moment, Yang intervened in the altercation. He remarked that although the guy was young, he was quite promising, so he didn't mind Ming Xuan joining them. Regarding the reward, Yang would negotiate with the guy later. This outing allowed Ming Xuan to become stronger as he had to face monsters again and again. The system once again reported that the guy had killed a rank 2 magical beast, a fire golem, for which he was awarded 150 experience points. Looking at what was left of the monster, Ming Xuan noted that once a rank 2 monster seemed incredibly strong to him, but now he was able to deal with such a monster so easily. The muscular man kept swearing at the others not to touch the monster cores. He was showing the rest of the group that there were only shards left of the core and they were worthless. The man noticed that they did the best they could since their attacks weren't accurate yet. The girl also noticed that they were second-rank monsters, and so if they were slow, they would also get hurt themselves. The muscular man once again became enraged, calling all these people incompetent. However, Yang intervened and asked the muscular man to calm down. He apologized to the others for the muscular man's rudeness. The other people were understanding and accepted the apology. Yang notes that there is some truth in the muscular man's words. After all the monster cores, except for the ones their recruit had collected, were cracked or wiped out. He notices that at this rate, the others' rewards will diminish. Yang notices that it seems like everyone who came now was having economic difficulties since they had decided to go on this hunt. He didn't want to let everyone down, so he offered those who agreed to explore deeper to pay the full reward, regardless of the prey. The poor people, who were nothing but naive fools, immediately rejoiced at such an offer. This whole promotion seemed too suspicious to the guy. However, he did not argue and traveled onward with the others. Ming Xuan felt that there was something strange about the suggestion to go further. He noticed that Yang and the muscular man had offered to go further, but were keeping behind the group themselves, which meant that there was danger ahead of the whole group. The man in the tie asked the young lad not to worry so much. Ming Xuan notes that caution is not unnecessary. The man notes that the lad has good skills, but not much experience yet. He notes that they are hunting fire golems, and they are monsters with strong territorial attachment. Therefore, the man thought that higher-level monsters could not dwell in such places. As was usually the case in such situations, the man thought that they would finish the matter quickly and then receive the full reward, and at the same moment he was pierced by the monster's attack. The man talking about the reward with a smile lost his upper body and fell to the ground. Seeing this, the other 2 members of the group were incredibly frightened. Ming Xuan was trying to figure out what was going on. Suddenly, he noticed a giant monster. It was a fire golem, only it was a mutated one and was considered elite. The guy was surprised that they had encountered a rank 3 monster. The man in the group was surprised to see such a monster for the first time. Meanwhile, it turned out that the monster was not alone. Ming Xuan and the others found themselves surrounded by the suddenly appearing second-rank monsters. Yang and Muscular Man stood on the cliff above. Yang asked the group not to worry as he was going to help them as much as he could. He asked the others not to set themselves up and try to survive. After that, he used the blood blessing. Yang was an awakened C-rank, support class, whisperer. The three survivors were enveloped by a blood-red aura of buff. However, looking at the system, Ming Xuan doubted that it was a buff, as in return for a 10% increase in speed and 10% strength, there was a 10% decrease in defense. Ming Xuan didn't waste any time and rushed towards the second-rank monsters. He told the others, if they didn't want to die, that they should cover him from behind. The man and woman understood the guy's request. They began to support Ming Xuan in his fight, and they made a pretty good team. Yang notices that the guy is not so simple. The Muscular Man notices that they must be stopped or they will manage to escape. However, Yang asks Muscular Man not to worry as he wasn't going to let anyone escape. At the same moment, bloody ropes burst out of the ground and grabbed the girl's legs, preventing her from moving, and then the second-rank monster easily ended the girl's life. Yang even remarks that he doesn't have any grievances against other people, just someone had to distract all those stone monsters. After that, he tells Biaozi to hurry up and go with him, because now no one will definitely escape from this place. Once they arrived at today's main trophy, Biaozi notices that Yang had thought of everything really well. Now they could take all the loot from this raid, and they will also be able to get materials from the mutated fire golem. Yang asks that Biaozi not to relax as the mutated monster was incredibly strong and previous attempts to defeat it had failed. Yang feels that they need to act faster this time. Biaozi tells Yang not to worry. Biaozi then draws his big sword from its sheath and goes to attack the mutated monster. The last man of Ming Xuan's group has been defeated and his weapon is broken. Ming Xuan was left all alone against so many monsters. This situation had happened to him before when he went on his dungeon quest. Now it was exactly the same, only the opponents were stronger, but he had also gotten stronger since that time. However, Ming Xuan thinks that the number of monsters this time was much smaller than last time, and then boldly attacks the monsters. What else can you expect when you're looking for a job in a crime-ridden neighborhood? One should always be wary of being stabbed in the back there. And that's all for today. Thank you very much for watching the video. If you would like to see a sequel, please like, subscribe to the channel, and leave your wishes in the comments. You can also subscribe to Telegram to know about new videos. Bye everybody.